All right. What's up, everybody? All my people, Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, Staten Island, my homeborough, Brooklyn. Back at another video. There's gonna be another entry of the greatest of all time series that I'm doing in honor of Super Bowl week, and this is gonna be on the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, arguably the greatest defense of all time in NFL history. Now, last video I did was on the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, and I said they're the greatest defense of all time, but if someone came up to me and said the '02 Bucks were, I wouldn't agree, but I wouldn't. But I can understand where you're coming from. The '02 Bucks, man. The Buccaneers. You gotta understand their history. The Buccaneers, were the yucks. They were the yucks, the succaneers. They had those bright colored orange jerseys and that gay ass pirate logo, the sword in its mouth, the feather in its hat, winking and shit. They were the yucks. They had a great player like Leroy Selman, who all you don't know is a great pass rusher. He was the first overall pick in Bucks franchise history in 1976. He passed away in 2011, but he was a Hall of Famer. The Bucks that year went 0-14. 3 years later, in 1979, after drafting Doug Williams, who went on to become the first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl with the Redskins. The Redskins, that's right, I said it. The Bucks went 10-6. They had Leroy Selman, the defense stepped up. They had Ricky Bell, another great halfback who passed away early. They did a movie on him called The Ricky Bell Story. But they were the yucks. They were the yucks. Okay, in 1993, they drafted John Lynch, safety John Lynch, who was the general manager for the 49ers, in my view, should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. John Lynch was a great player if you watch his highlights. But in 1995, they drafted this man right here, Big Warren Sapp, my boy from the U. He fell to the Buccaneers because of a failed drug test. He was on marijuana. They drafted him. They also drafted from rival school at Florida State University, Derek Brooks. And they would go on to help rebuild the Bucks franchise along with Mr. John Lynch. In 1996, I believe they hired Tony Dungy. And Tony Dungy, as we all know, is a defensive genius, a defensive mastermind, and he helped rebuild their defense. In 97, they changed their uniforms to these dope-ass pewter junks they got on. They started out that season 5-0, and I think that 11-5, and they lost in the playoffs, of course. But they were building. They had Hardy Nickerson at middle linebacker. They were coming. The Bucks were coming with Warren Sapp, old young cornrow Warren Sapp, and Brooks and Lynch. In 1997, also, they drafted cornerback Ronde Barber, who, in my view, should be in the Hall of Fame as well. I think Ronde was a Hall of Famer. After years and years, of playoff exits, 99, Warren Sapp was the Defensive Player of the Year. I believe he had 16 sacks for a defensive tackle. That's amazing. They lost the NFC Championship game to the St. Louis Rams, the greatest show on turf, 11-6. That's right. That was a game 11-6. That was an odd score for an NFL game, but it's true. 2000, they lost in the wild card round to the Philadelphia Eagles. 2001, they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, led by Donovan McNabb. And then and after that, they fired Tony Dungy, and they traded for this man right here, Mr. John Gruden, who was the coach of the Raiders. He helped rebuild the Raiders with Rich Gannon, Charles Woodson, and company, Sammy Brown. And 2000, of course, like I said in the last video, they lost the Baltimore Ravens 0-1. They get Jerry Rice. They lose in the controversial Tuck Rule game, or the fuck rule game, as certain members of Raider Nation call it. And, they traded John Gruden to the Buccaneers. He takes over, and Warren Sapp recently did an interview on Club Shay Shay, Shannon Sharp's podcast, and he made a statement. Said Tony Dungy was a little too nice for them to win a Super Bowl, and I understand where he was coming from. Tony Dungy has the calm, Christian, God-fearing image. That doesn't really fit. The Buccaneers. These red pewter pirates. In this fierce, menacing defense. John Gruden, as we all know, is cussing up a storm. They called him Chucky over in Raider Nation. So he fit that mold perfectly. So, 2002, they lose opening day to the Saints in overtime. Here's Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks on the Hall of Fame. There's John Lynch. And here's Simeon Rice. I forgot to mention, 2001, the Buccaneers acquired Simeon Rice. For all you don't know, he was the number one. I believe he was the number 1 or the number 2 overall pick in the 96 draft class. 96 draft class, one of the greatest draft class ever in the NFL history, by the way. 96, you have Jonathan Ogden, who was the first ballot Hall of Famer for the Ravens. Ray Lewis, who was the first ballot Hall of Famer. Terrell Owens, Brian Dawkins, Marvin Harrison. Like, that draft class was loaded. But Simeon Rice, who should be in the Hall of Fame as well. He has over 126 career sacks. Like he was a Hall of Famer to me. He should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl, but we're gonna get into that later. But like I said, of course, here's Rondy Barber. Okay, as you guys can see here, Bucks went 12-4. They won the NFC South. At that time, the NFC South was a new division they created because before that, it was called the NFC Central with the Packers, the Bears, the Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Buccaneers were in that division. With the NFC South, they took the Falcons, Saints, and the Carolina Panthers, who at the time were in the NFC West, and put them in the NFC South. Obviously, here they played the 49ers, beat them 31-6. They mollywopped the Eagles 27-10, thanks to Rondy Barber. And of course, you see they beat the Raiders 48-21 in the Super Bowl, John Gru's former team. You see Brad Johnson, Mike Allstott, Simeon Rice, Sapp Brooks, a linebacker named Sheldon Quarles, and John Lynch were Pro Bowlers. Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, Brooks, Rondy Barber, and John Lynch were all pro. Excuse me. Here they are. They were number one in defense, number one in yards allowed, number three in turnovers. The Buccaneers are probably one of the best scoring defenses of all time. Like they just get interception after. You watch their highlight reels on YouTube, they were just getting fumble recovery after interception. Like Warren Sapp was intercepting the ball, taking it to the house. You know, they were just crazy that year. They were number one against the pass. They were 5 against rushing yards. Probably the Ravens were number one. Like I said, they lost the Saints and they shut out Baltimore in Baltimore 25-0. You know, they only had one shutout that year. You know, I think and even though they didn't have a shutout, you know, they're still an all-time great defense. I think what really shows you're all-time great defense if you have shutouts. Like, teams can't score against you. Obviously, they only had one, but that doesn't take away from what they did. And yeah, they finished the season 12-4 and led the NFL with 31 interceptions, you know. Like I said, you watch that Super Bowl, and it's on YouTube. The full Super Bowl is on YouTube. The NFL put it out. So it's good. It's legit. You know, Dwight Smith, a cornerback, had 2 interception returns, touchdowns. Derek Brooks, you know, Dexter Jackson, the safety, who will end up being the Super Bowl MVP, had 2 interceptions in the game. Simeon Rice had 2 sacks. Warren Sapp had a sack and a forced fumble that the Raiders recovered. And Derek Brooks iced the game with a 41, because the Raiders were coming back. It was 34-21, and Brooks on 3rd and 18, Brooks intercepted the pass and made it 41-21. And then the Raiders, for some odd reason, threw the ball again, and Dwight Smith, the corner, intercepted it, and with 5 seconds on the clock, scored a touchdown. It was 48-21. Like, the Buccaneers just dominated that team. Now, like I said, how I rank all-time great NFL teams is number of Hall of Famers, your regular season record, and, of course, your Super Bowl. The Bucs beat the Raiders 48-21, and the Raiders were the league number 1 offense that year with Rich Gannon, Jerry Rice, and Tim Brown, who, of course, were older and past their primes. You know, they also had Rod Woodson, who on cornerback, who was old and past his prime. Bill Romanowski was old and past his prime. Raiders were just an older team. Rich Gannon, I think, was like in his late 30s. I think he was like 36, 37. Yeah, they were 12-4. They were the number 1 defense in the league that year. The defense carried them that Super Bowl. Nothing against the offensive players, but because you saw Brad Johnson, the quarterback, was the team MVP. And they have 2 Hall of Famers. But like I said, Simeon Rice, Rondy Barber, and John Lynch should be in the Hall of Fame. So I'd give them 5 Hall of Famers just on the defensive side of the ball, man. That's legendary. The Buccaneers are, to me, you know, in the last 30 years, you know, post Lawrence Taylor, I'd say from 95 on, the Buccaneers are the second best defense of all time. And you can make a case that they're the greatest defense of all time. You can make that case. Put them up there with the 85 Bears and the 86 Giants and the 2000 Ravens. But what do you think? Comment down below. Like the video if you like it. Subscribe. Help a young brother grow on YouTube. And I'm going to see you all.